Good afternoon, good evening everybody. I'm Timothy, and in today's video we're going to be looking at the word sword, and under sword we'll talk about what rationalization, and after rationalization we'll talk about what conjugate, and if there's still enough time I will not do this, but okay, let's start with rationalization. When they say rationalization, what do we actually mean? To rationalize a sword, we need what? A fraction, and the fraction, the denominator, is what we are concerned with. Now, if the denominator is a sword, a denominator contains a radical which is not a like example 1 over what root 2. Now, this denominator now is what has what a radical, which is what the square root what operation, the square root what function. So now we are going to do what? To rationalize this, and to rationalize this simply means to make it what easier, to make it look more rational. So what we do now is we multiply this same thing with what? With 1. We multiply it with what? With 1. What do I mean by 1? Root what? 2 over 2 is equal to 1. And when you multiply this with 1, you have not changed anything. When you multiply 1 over root 2 times 1, it will still give you back. It will still give you back 1 over root 2. So now I will now technically call my 1 to be what? Root 2 over 2. I have not changed anything. When I multiply this 1 over root 2 with this now, I'm going to have root 2 over what? Root 2 times root 2 to give me root 2 over 2. Now this when this multiplies, I'll get 2. So now that's why I have what? Root 2 over 2. Now looking at this now, it is now more rational while looking at, because the denominator here is radical free. Now this thing here is what is going to take me to prove some of this. So without wasting much of our time, I have that is 1 times what? Root 2 divided by root 2 times root 2. So I want to show how this equals root 2 over what? Root 2 over 2. But before then, I'll be proving some of this. So now, this first one says A is equal to A root B plus C root D is equal to A plus C root what? B. Now, if we are going to recall from our indices, when the base are the same, when the powers are the same, you add like A raised to the power B multiplied by C raised to the power B is what? A times what? B raised to the power B. But that's not what we are going to use here. What we are going to apply here is what? Addition. Since they have the same what? Sorry, this is B. Since they have the same radical, it is the same thing as what? Saying A plus C. We add the whole numbers. We add the radical free numbers. For example, let's take for example now we have A root 2 plus C root what? 2. You know that root 2 is common. Since root 2 is common, you take root 2 out and do what? Add the uncommon ones, which is what? A plus C. Since root 2 is common, you bring root 2 outside. And mathematics, laws of mathematics, additional laws of mathematics supports this. So now the next thing we do now is what? We apply it here. B is here, they are common, you bring B outside there, now you add the what? The uncommon ones. So that is how we got this. It is very easy to see. And the next one is the same thing. The next one says A root D minus C root D to be equal to A minus C root D. It's the same thing here. D is here, it is a common variable, so you know A minus what? C, which they are not common, we don't know what they are, but since we know that this is root D and this is root D, and for sure D must equals D, So now that is how we now got that a minus c, a root d minus c root d is equal to what? A minus c root d. And that will now go over to the third one. Now go over to the third one. The third one says the root of what? AB is equal to the root of A multiplied by the root of what? B. Now I'm going to I will prove this using what? The ideal of what? Indices. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come from this side. I'm going to do like this, meaning that I'm proving from this side. Now the first thing I'm going to say, the root A multiplied by the root B is the same thing as what? A raised to the power 1 over 2, because A is equal to what? A raised to the power 1 over 2. So this is what I'm using now. A raised to the power 1 over 2 multiplied by what? B raised to the power 1 over 2. So what am I going to do next? Since they have the same powers, I'm going to multiply the base. Now I'm going to say that this is equal to A multiplied by what? B, all raised to the power 1 over what? 2. And since I put two of them in bracket, I can now take the common square root of what? Of this number now. I will now say this is equal to what? The square root of what? A, B. And that is what we have here. So now, if I am to prove from this side, proving from here now, I'll now say the root of what? AB is now equal to what? The root of A multiplied by the root of what? B. I will now separate the what? The variables. Now, I'll now say that this is equal to what? A multiply A raised to the power AB raised to the power 1 over what? 2. I'll now come again and say that this is A raised to the power 1 over 2 multiplied by what? B raised to the power 1 over 2. That is opening what? The bracket. I'll now say again from this that A raised to the power 1 over 2 is same as what? The square root of A. I'll now say that root A, which is equal to A raised to 1 over 2 multiplied by root what? B, which is equal to 1 over 2. Now, having proved from the both sides that this is equal to this and that this is equal to this, I can now say with full confidence that root AB is equal to root of A multiplied by root of what? B. Now, the next one I'm going to be proving is number 4. Number 4 says the A root what? B C root what? D is equals to AC root B D. So this is what I'm going to be proving now. Now there's no common variable. So what I'm going to do now is what? This is A times proving from this side. This is A times what? The square root of what? B times C times what? The square root of what? D. Now what I'm going to do now is what? I'm going to multiply these ones first, because mathematics is just what? Manipulations, and whatever way you manipulate and get the correct answer with obeying whatever way you manipulate and get the correct answer obeying all the rules, it is what? It is permitted. So now I am going to multiply A and C together, multiply again root B and root what? D together. Now having done this, I will now say it is equal to, this is AC, and since I will not put in bracket, this is B1 over 2 multiplied by what? D1 over 2. With that law of indices, when the powers are the same, you multiply the base. I will now say this is equal to AC in bracket, this is B times what? D raised by 1 over what? 2. I will now say that this is equal to what? AC, now the square root of what? B, D. Now this is this. Now proving from this side, coming from this side, I want to say AC root what? B, D. Now what I'm going to do now is what? I'm going to first of all say AC. Now put this in bracket and separate what? The square root function, and say B, D, let's go 1 over what? 2. I'm now going to open this bracket, and now I will now say that this is equal to AC B raised to the power 1 over 2 multiplied by D raised to the power 1 over what? 2. All of them, their multiplication there. So I'll now say this is equal to A multiplied by C multiplied by what? The root of what? B multiplied by the root of what? D. Now since what I'm looking for is what that since what I want to prove is a root b times c root d. I'm not going to multiply together a and d. No, it's not going to give me what I need. So what I'm going to do now is what a multiplied by root what b multiplied by c multiplied by root what d. So what I'm going to get now is a root b multiplied by c root what d to be equal to ac root b d. Now having proved from here and I arrived that two of them are equal with no contradictions, I can now confidently say that this is equal to that. So now proving number 5 as the last. Number 5 and number 5 says the root of a over b is equal to root of a over root of what b. So what I'm going to do now is what I'm going to prove from here. I'm going to say that root of a over what b is equal to, I'm going to say a over what b, since I'm going to say a over what b, let's suppose 1 over 2 is equal to this. They are the same thing, just that I put this square root function to be like this. So I'll now open the bracket by saying a raised to the power 1 over 2 over what b raised to the power 1 over 2. I'll now say again that root of what a over what root of b is equal to this. Now I will now prove what's coming from this side. I'll now say this is root a over what root b. This is root a over what root b. Next thing I'm going to do here now is I'm going to say this is a raised to the power 1 over 2 over what b raised to the power 1 over what 2. And remember, when they have the same powers, this is equal to a over what b. Since the powers are common, I now divide this thing. Remember, this thing is the same thing as a raised to 1 over 2 divided by what b raised to 1 over 2. Since they have the same powers, I will now divide the base by saying a divided by b all raised to 1 over 2. Now having done this, I can now put this in this form by saying the square root of what a over what b to equal root a over root b, and this one to equal root a over b. So having proved from here and from here, arriving at the same thing, I can now completely say that this is equal to that. So to finish up what I started before I cross over, 1 times root 2 over root 2 times root 2 now is equal to 1. Of course, 1 times root 2 is same thing as 2 raised to the 1 over what 2. 2 raised to the power 1 over 2 all over 2 raised to the power 1 over 2 times 2 raised to the power 1 over 2. So now this is going to give me 2 raised to the power 1 over 2 to be equal to, when they are the same base, you add the powers. When the powers are the same, you multiply the base. So whichever way, let's do 2 raised to the power 2. Okay, let's do 2 times 2 to give us what 4 raised to the power 1 over what 2 to give us 2 raised to the power 1 over 2 over what 2 raised to the power 2 1 over 2. This will give us what 2 1 over 2 over what 2 raised to the power 2 over 2. Now we're going to get 2 1 over 2 to give you what 2. So this is simple as what root 2 over 2. So I come here again, I will now say 2 raised to the power 1 over 2 over what 2 raised to the power 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2. This is 2 raised to the power 1 over 2 to be equal to 2. 1 over 2 plus 1 over 2 is 1. And this is root 2 over 2. So that is how this is equals what that. And I hope you find this video very useful. In my next video, I'm going to talk about conjugates and also prove from this number 6 to number 10. And there are something I want to clear on conjugates. Just follow me up. I remain on SIR-MuCOT. Please do like and subscribe. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.